On Christmas night, my own family closed the door on my 9-year-old daughter. She stood there holding the gifts she made for them, waiting. They told her to leave and turned away like she didn't matter. She walked home alone and spent Christmas in silence. When I found out what they did, I didn't argue. I didn't beg. Not long after, everyone saw who they really were. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now let's dive into today's story. The December wind cut through Lila Rowan's thin coat as she walked down Maple Street, her breath forming small clouds in the frozen air. 9 years old, small for her age, she clutched a gift bag against her chest like it might protect her from the cold. The bag was homemade, folded from brown grocery paper because wrapping paper cost money they didn't have. One corner had torn, so she'd patched it with too much tape that now caught the streetlight in crinkled waves. Inside were 3 things. A candle she'd poured herself using wax from old birthday candles, melted down in a chipped coffee mug. A card with letters she'd traced and retraced until her hand cramped, trying to get them straight. And a scarf she'd crocheted in secret, sitting up after her mother went to work, following a library book with frayed pages. The scarf was lumpy in places. The colors didn't quite match, but it was warm, and she'd made it herself. Her mother was working the overnight shift at Riverside Care, the long-term facility on the edge of town where the hallways smelled like industrial cleaner and boiled vegetables. Christmas meant double pay, which meant they could keep the heat on in January. Kendra had left at 4 in the afternoon, her scrubs already on, her dark hair pulled back tight enough to make her temples ache. She'd kissed Lila's forehead and reminded her to lock both deadbolts. "I'll be home at 7, Kendra had said. "There's leftovers in the fridge. Don't wait up." She hadn't mentioned the gifts, hadn't asked if Lila still planned to drop them off at her grandmother's house. That silence was permission enough. Lila had waited until the sun went down, until the neighborhood settled into that particular Christmas night quiet where everyone was inside with their families, before she bundled up and walked the 6 blocks to her grandparents' house on Sycamore. She knew the route by heart. Past the corner store with the crooked sign, past the house with the chain-link fence and the dog that never stopped barking, past the empty lot where kids played baseball in summer. The house was lit up when she arrived. White lights strung along the porch railing, a wreath on the door with a red velvet bow. Through the front window, she could see people moving around inside. Her grandmother, her Aunt Belinda, and her family. The dining room table set with dishes Lila recognized from previous holidays. She climbed the porch steps carefully. The wood was old and some of the boards creaked. Her heart was pounding, though she couldn't have said why. This was her family. She'd been here 100 times. She knocked. The sound seemed too loud in the cold air. For a moment, nothing. Then footsteps. The door opened, and Belinda Marsh stood there in a cream-colored sweater and dark jeans that probably cost more than Kendra made in a week. Her blonde hair was perfect, her makeup precise. She looked at Lila, and her expression didn't change. "You weren't supposed to come," Belinda said. Lila's mouth opened. The words got stuck somewhere between her brain and her throat. She swallowed. "Grandma said I could drop the presents off." Behind Belinda, the house was warm. Lila could smell ham and something sweet, maybe pie. She could hear voices, laughter. Her cousin's voice calling out something about a board game. "Who is it?" That was her grandmother, Janice, from somewhere deeper in the house. Belinda didn't turn around. She was still looking at Lila, and there was something in her eyes that Lila couldn't name. Not anger. Something colder than that. "Go on," Belinda said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. That made it worse somehow. "We're busy." Lila stood there, the bag heavy in her hands. The wind picked up, and a strand of hair blew across her face. She didn't move to brush it away. Janice appeared behind Belinda then, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. She was shorter than her daughter, rounder, With gray hair, she dyed brown every 6 weeks at the salon on 3rd Street. She glanced at Lila, then at the bag, and something flickered across her face, too quick to read. "This isn't the right time," Janice said. Not unkind, just factual, like she was commenting on the weather. Then she reached around Belinda and closed the door. The lock clicked into place. Lila stood on the porch for 30 seconds, maybe longer. Through the window, she could see them moving back toward the dining room. Her grandmother laughing at something someone said. Belinda's husband pouring wine into glasses. Nobody looked back toward the door. Lila walked down the porch steps, turned left, started the 6 blocks home. The gift bag felt heavier now somehow. The handle cut into her palm where she gripped it. She walked past the empty lot, past the house with the barking dog, past the corner store, closed now, its windows dark. She didn't cry. She'd learned early that crying didn't fix things. Her mother had taught her that without ever saying the words out loud. You just kept walking. You just kept going. By the time she got home, her fingers were numb inside her gloves. She let herself in with the key she wore on a string around her neck, locked both deadbolts like her mother had taught her, and went to her room. She set the bag on her desk, looked at it for a long moment. Then she changed into her pajamas, brushed her teeth, and got into bed. She lay awake until she heard her mother's car pull into the driveway at 7 the next morning. Kendra found the bag in the kitchen trash when she was making coffee. She'd gotten home at 7:15, later than she'd planned because the night shift supervisor had needed help with discharge paperwork. Her feet ached. Her lower back had that dull throb that meant she'd lifted too many patients without proper form. She smelled like industrial soap and the particular staleness of hospital air. She'd expected to find Lila asleep. Instead, the girl was sitting on her bed, already dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair brushed and pulled back in a ponytail. The bed was made with military precision, the corners tucked tight. Kendra had paused in the doorway, still in her scrubs, keys in hand. "You're up early." Lila nodded. She was looking at her hands, folded in her lap. "Did you sleep okay?" Another nod. Kendra had felt something shift in her chest then, some instinct that something was wrong. But she was tired and her daughter was safe and fed and warm, so she'd gone to make coffee first. That's when she saw the bag in the trash. She'd pulled it out carefully like it might break. The brown paper was crumpled now, one side crushed where something heavy had been thrown on top of it. She looked inside. The candle, the card, the scarf, all still wrapped, untouched. Kendra stood at the kitchen counter for a full minute, the bag in her hands, something cold settling into her stomach. Then she set down her coffee mug very carefully and walked back to Lila's room. Lila was still sitting on the bed. Same position, same folded hands. Kendra sat down beside her. The mattress dipped. She wanted to put her arm around her daughter, but something in the girl's posture stopped her. Lila was holding herself very still, very contained. Like if she moved too much, something might crack open. "They didn't want them," Lila said. Her voice was flat, empty of inflection, like she was reciting a fact from a textbook. Kendra felt her stomach drop, but she kept her face calm. She'd learned that, too, over the years. How to keep the storm inside. How to keep the fear and rage from showing on your face where your kid could see it. She asked one question. "Did anyone yell at you?" Lila shook her head. "Did anyone open the door again after they closed it?" Another shake. Kendra looked at her daughter's profile. 9 years old. Small for her age, like Kendra had been. Dark hair, dark eyes. A serious kid. Too serious, maybe. The kind of kid who spent her evenings making gifts by hand because she knew money was tight and she didn't want to ask for anything. The kind of kid who would walk 6 blocks in the dark and get turned away from her own grandmother's house on Christmas night. "Okay," Kendra said. Her voice was steady. "Thank you for telling me." Lila nodded again once, and that was it. Kendra went back to the kitchen, poured her coffee, drank it standing up at the counter. Then she pulled out her phone and opened her contacts. She scrolled down to her mother's name. She looked at it for a long time. Then she locked her phone and set it on the counter. Kendra had always been the inconvenient one, not in any dramatic way, not with shouting matches or slammed doors or teenage rebellion that made for good stories later. Just quietly inconvenient. The kind of inconvenient that made people sigh and exchange glances and say things like, well, you know how Kendra is. She'd gotten pregnant at 22. Not planned. Not with anyone she loved or even particularly liked. A mistake with a man whose name she rarely said out loud anymore, and whose face she'd worked hard to forget. He'd wanted nothing to do with it, and she'd discovered she preferred it that way. Her mother had been horrified, not just at the pregnancy itself, but at Kendra's refusal to handle it the right way. No shotgun wedding, no tearful family intervention, no convenient story about a boyfriend who died or moved away or been deployed. Just Kendra, pregnant and matter-of-fact about it, working double shifts at the diner until she couldn't stand on her feet anymore, and then finding work she could do from home until Lila was born. Belinda had been furious in her own way. Belinda, 2 years younger, who'd done everything right. Dated the right kind of man, gotten engaged at 23, married at 24, pregnant at 26 with the first of 3 children spaced exactly 2 years apart. She'd stayed home with them. Her husband made good money in medical sales. They lived in a house with a 2-car garage and a kitchen island and one of those doorbells with a camera. Kendra worked nights at Riverside Care. She missed family dinners because her schedule didn't line up. She brought generic brand sodas to potlucks and store-brand chips. She didn't ask for help, even when she needed it. And Lila, sweet, quiet Lila. She was a living reminder that Kendra had made her own choices and refused to apologize for them. Janice didn't like disorder. Never had. She liked things neat, contained, explainable. She liked family trees that made sense and stories she could tell her friends at church, without embarrassment. Lila was love, certainly, but she was also a complication. A conversation that had to be had carefully. An explanation that required rehearsal. Christmas night hadn't been about timing. It had been about control, about boundaries, about the subtle ways families punish the ones who won't conform. And Kendra, sitting at her kitchen counter at 7:30 in the morning on December 26th, exhausted and angry and heartbroken for her daughter, understood that perfectly. She didn't call her mother. She didn't send an angry text. She didn't demand an apology or an explanation or even an acknowledgement. She just made a decision, quiet and final, the way she made most decisions in her life. She was done. Act End 1. When Janice called on January 4th, Kendra was folding laundry in the living room. Lila was at school. The TV was on, muted, playing some daytime talk show Kendra wasn't watching. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Mom, the screen said. Kendra looked at it. Folded another pair of Lila's jeans, the small kind with the elastic waist. Set them in the basket. The phone buzzed again, then a third time before going to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it started ringing again. Kendra picked it up on the 4th ring. Hey, Mom. Well, finally. Janice's voice was bright, forcefully cheerful. I was starting to think you'd changed your number. Just busy. I'm sure you are. Listen, I wanted to talk about Lila. Belinda mentioned she was asking when Lila was coming over next. The kids have been asking about her. Kendra folded another pair of jeans. We've been busy. Busy. A pause. Kendra, it's been over a week since Christmas. Surely you can bring her by for an afternoon. I don't think so. What do you mean you don't think so? Kendra could hear the shift in her mother's tone, the edge creeping in, the impatience Janice always tried to hide behind reasonable words. I mean, we've been busy, Kendra said. Lila has homework. I've been working overtime. It's just not a good time. Not a good time, Janice repeated. Kendra, what is this about? It's not about anything. I'm just tired. You're always tired. Then you understand why we can't make it. Another pause, longer this time. Kendra could picture her mother standing in her kitchen, the phone pressed to her ear, that particular expression on her face that meant she was recalculating her approach. Did something happen? Janice asked. Her voice was softer now, almost gentle. If this is about Christmas, honey, we were just overwhelmed. You know how it is when everyone's here at once. We didn't mean. We've been busy, Kendra said again. I need to go. Laundry's piling up. Kendra. I'll talk to you later, Mom. She ended the call before Janice could respond. Her hands were shaking. She set the phone down on the coffee table and went back to folding laundry, creasing each piece with deliberate precision until her breathing evened out. Belinda called 3 days later. Kendra was at work, restocking supply closets on the second floor, when her phone vibrated in her pocket. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pull off her gloves and step into the empty break room. Yeah. What the hell is your problem? No preamble. Belinda's voice was sharp, defensive. Mom is in tears thinking she did something to upset you. Kendra leaned against the wall. The break room smelled like burnt coffee and the artificial lemon scent they used to mop the floors. I haven't said anything to upset her. You're avoiding us. Don't pretend you're not. You won't bring Lila over. You won't answer calls. Mom tried to make plans for next weekend, and you gave her some excuse about being busy. We are busy. You're punishing us. Belinda's voice rose slightly. Over what? Because we had a full house on Christmas? Because we couldn't squeeze in one more person at the last minute? Kendra closed her eyes, counted to 3. Lila didn't ask to come inside. She just wanted to drop off some gifts she made. And that's exactly the problem. You didn't coordinate with anyone. You just sent her over without checking if it was okay. We had plans, Kendra. We had a schedule. She's 9 years old. She made gifts for her grandmother. It was Christmas. And we appreciate that, but you can't just expect everyone to drop everything because you decided. She stood on the porch in the cold, Kendra said. Her voice was still calm, still measured. She walked 6 blocks alone at night. She was holding a bag of presents she made herself, and someone closed the door in her face. Silence on the other end. No one closed the door in her face, Belinda said finally. That's dramatic. You were there. Yes, I was there. I answered the door. I explained that it wasn't a good time. I was polite about it. Did you take the gifts? What? Did you take the gift she made? Another pause. Mom didn't think it was appropriate at the time. Why? Because Belinda's voice was tight now, frustrated. Because it was complicated, okay? We had people over. It would have raised questions. About what? About Lila. About why she was there alone. About where you were. Kendra felt something cold settle in her chest. You were embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed. Don't put words in my mouth. You didn't want people asking questions about my kid showing up alone on Christmas night because it might make you look bad. That's not. Belinda stopped. Breathe. You're twisting this. You're making it about something it's not. Mom loves Lila. We all do. But you can't just expect everyone to accommodate your schedule and your way of doing things. Some of us plan ahead. Some of us make an effort to be organized. Kendra opened her eyes, looked at the break room's yellowed ceiling tiles, the flickering fluorescent light in the corner. I need to get back to work. Don't do this. Don't be dramatic about this. You're going to regret it if you let this turn into some big thing. I'm tired, Kendra said. I'm really, really tired. She hung up. Her supervisor found her 5 minutes later, still standing in the break room, staring at nothing. You okay? Kendra nodded, pulled her gloves back on. Yeah, just needed a minute. The family noticed. Not right away. At first, they just figured Kendra was being difficult, the way she always was. Stubborn, oversensitive, making a mountain out of nothing. But January became February, and Kendra didn't bring Lila to any family gatherings. When Janice called to invite them to Sunday dinner, Kendra said they already had plans. When Belinda texted about a birthday party for one of her kids, Kendra said Lila wasn't feeling well. Kendra's always been sensitive, Janice said to Belinda over coffee one afternoon in late February. They were sitting in Janice's kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd baked cookies with Lila a dozen times, where they'd colored pictures and played board games and done all the things grandmothers and granddaughters were supposed to do. She's punishing us, Belinda said. That's what this is. She's trying to make us feel guilty. About what? About Christmas. About turning Lila away. She's decided we were horrible to her daughter, and now she's freezing us out. Janice stirred sugar into her coffee. I didn't turn anyone away. I just said it wasn't a good time. I know that. You know that. But Kendra's decided to make it into some big dramatic thing. You know how she is. Janice sighed. I raised her better than this. I don't know where I went wrong. You didn't go wrong. She's just stubborn. She always has been. They drank their coffee and talked about other things. Belinda's kids, Janice's arthritis, the new family moving in down the street. Neither of them talked about Lila. Lila noticed too in her own way. She stopped asking about her grandparents, stopped mentioning her cousins. When kids at school talked about family gatherings, she got quiet and found something else to do. In March, Kendra found her standing in front of her desk one evening, looking at the craft supplies she'd accumulated over the years. Yarn, construction paper, beads, glue sticks, the materials she'd used to make gifts. You want to make something? Kendra asked from the doorway. Lila shook her head. No, we could make cards. Spring's coming. Easter cards, maybe. For who? The question was so quiet, Kendra almost didn't hear it. For whoever you want, she said. Lila looked at the supplies for another long moment. Then she closed the desk drawer. I don't want to make anything. She walked past Kendra and went to sit on her bed with a library book about volcanoes. Kendra stood in the doorway, watching her daughter read, and felt something break open in her chest. The next week, she made an appointment with a child therapist named Dr. Patricia Winters. She didn't tell her mother, didn't tell Belinda, didn't tell anyone. She just took Lila to a small office on the third floor of a medical building downtown, where Dr. Winters had plants on her windowsill and soft chairs and a table with colored pencils and paper. This is just someone to talk to, Kendra explained in the car on the way there. About anything you want. About school, about friends, about feelings. Whatever. Lila nodded. She didn't ask why. She just got out of the car when they arrived and followed Kendra upstairs. That first session lasted 45 minutes. When Lila came out, she looked tired but not upset. Dr. Winters asked if Kendra wanted to schedule regular appointments. Yes, Kendra said. Please. They went every Thursday afternoon for the next 6 months. Kendra never asked what they talked about. Dr. Winters never volunteered information beyond general updates. Lila was adjusting well. She was processing things in a healthy way. She was learning to articulate her feelings. That was enough. 2 years passed. 2 years of Kendra working nights at Riverside Care. 2 years of Lila growing taller, quieter, more self-contained. 2 years of carefully maintained distance from Janice and Belinda and the rest of the family. They still lived in the same town, still saw each other occasionally in passing, at the grocery store, at the gas station. Once, Kendra had turned down an aisle at the pharmacy and nearly collided with Belinda, who'd looked at her with something between anger and confusion before turning away without speaking. Kendra hadn't tried to explain. What was there to explain? Then, in October of the second year, Janice had a stroke. Not a major one. A TIA, the doctors called it. A warning. She was in the hospital for 3 days, then sent home with a list of medications and instructions to reduce stress and watch her diet. Belinda called Kendra from the hospital. Kendra was at work, changing bed linens on the third floor when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but something about the time, 2 in the afternoon, when Belinda was usually busy with her kids, made her pull off her gloves and step into the hallway. "Mom had a stroke," Belinda said. No greeting, just the facts. Kendra felt her stomach drop. When? This morning. She's stable. They're keeping her for observation, but the doctor says she'll be fine. I just thought you should know. What hospital? Marietta Memorial. I'll come after my shift. You don't have to. Belinda's voice was strange tight. I just wanted to inform you. I'm coming anyway. She hung up before Belinda could respond. That night, after her shift ended at 11, Kendra drove to the hospital. She was still in her scrubs, her hair pulled back, exhaustion pulling at the edges of her vision. She found her mother's room on the cardiac floor, a semi-private with another elderly woman sleeping behind a curtain. Janice was awake, propped up on pillows and 4 in her arm. She looked smaller than Kendra remembered, older. Her hair was messy, her face pale without makeup. Kendra. Her voice was thin, surprised. You came. Of course I came. Kendra stood at the foot of the bed, hands in her pockets. They looked at each other across the space. 2 years of silence sitting between them like a physical thing. How are you feeling? Tired. Confused. They keep running tests. That's normal. Janice nodded, looked down at her hands. They said I need to reduce stress, change my diet, all these things I'm supposed to do. You'll figure it out. Another silence. Then Janice looked up and there were tears in her eyes. I've missed you. I've missed Lila. Kendra felt something shift in her chest, but she kept her face neutral. I know. I don't understand what happened. Why you pulled away. We're family, Kendra. Family doesn't just disappear. Sometimes they do. Not like this. Not without a reason. Kendra looked at her mother, at the 4 taped to her thin arm, at the hospital gown and the monitors beeping softly and the vulnerability that age and illness had exposed. She could have said it then, could have explained, but what would be the point? You should rest, she said instead. I'll check on you tomorrow. She left before Janice could respond. Belinda showed up at Kendra's apartment 2 weeks later. Kendra was home for once, a rare Saturday off. She was doing dishes when the doorbell rang. She dried her hands on a towel and looked through the peephole. Belinda was standing on the doormat, arms crossed, that expression on her face that meant she'd rehearsed this conversation. Kendra opened the door but didn't step aside. Hey, can I come in? Is this quick? Belinda's jaw tightened. I drove all the way over here. The least you can do is let me inside. Kendra considered. Then she stepped back and gestured toward the living room. The apartment was small but clean. 1 bedroom for Lila, 1 for Kendra. Second-hand furniture, thrift store art on the walls. The kind of place that worked because they didn't need much. Belinda sat on the edge of the couch, perched like she might need to leave quickly. Kendra stayed standing. What do you want? I need your help. The words came out fast, defensive. With Mom. She needs someone to check on her during the day. I'm trying to manage it, but I have the kids and Ryan's been traveling for work, and I can't do it all by myself. Hire someone. We can't afford that. Not long term. You work in healthcare. You know how expensive it is. Get one of those alert systems. The kind where she presses a button if she needs help. She needs more than that. She needs family. Belinda's voice cracked slightly. She needs us to step up. Us. Yes, us. Her daughters. You and me. We're supposed to take care of her. Kendra looked at her sister. at the expensive haircut and the designer purse and the subtle signs of stress around her eyes. Where was this 2 years ago? What? This family loyalty. This idea that we're supposed to take care of each other. Where was it when your niece needed you? Belinda's face went carefully blank. I don't know what you're talking about. Christmas night, 2 years ago, when Lila walked to Mom's house alone and you closed the door on her. That's not. Belinda stopped. Breathe. That's not what happened. What happened then? It was complicated. The timing was bad. We had company. It wasn't personal. It was personal to her. She was 9 years old. She didn't understand. She understood enough. Belinda stood up. Her hands were shaking. You're going to punish Mom for this? She's sick, Kendra. She needs help. And you're going to hold some grudge from 2 years ago over something that was barely even an incident. It wasn't an incident to Lila. It was humiliation. It was rejection from the people who were supposed to love her unconditionally. We do love her. We've always loved her. But you've kept her away from us. You've made it impossible for us to have a relationship with her. I didn't make anything impossible. You did that yourselves. By what? By having a busy Christmas? By not being available every single second she wanted to see us? By making her feel like she wasn't wanted? Belinda's face flushed. You're being dramatic. You're making this into something it's not. And now you're using it as an excuse to abandon your own mother when she needs you most. I'm not abandoning anyone. I just have different priorities. Your daughter. Yes, my daughter. What about your mother? What about the woman who raised you? What about the woman who closed the door on her granddaughter? Belinda stared at her. Then she grabbed her purse and walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the knob. You're going to regret this, she said. When she's gone, you're going to wish you'd tried harder. You're going to wish you'd been the bigger person. Maybe, Kendra said, but at least my daughter will know I chose her. Belinda left without another word. 3 months later, in February, Janice called and asked if Lila wanted to come visit. Kendra was surprised. Her mother had tried calling a few times over the past months, but the conversations had been brief, surface level. This was different. This was a direct request. Just for an afternoon, Janice said. I've been thinking about her. I'd like to see her. Kendra looked across the living room where Lila was doing homework at the coffee table. 11 years old now, her dark hair longer, pulled into a ponytail. She was working on a math problem, her face serious with concentration. Let me talk to her, Kendra said. She hung up and sat down next to Lila on the floor. That was your grandmother. She wants to know if you'd like to visit her. Lila didn't look up from her worksheet. Why? She said she misses you. She'd like to see you. Does she want me to bring gifts? The question was so quiet, so matter-of-fact, that it took Kendra a moment to respond. No, no gifts, just a visit. Lila set down her pencil, looked at her mother. Do I have to go? No, it's your choice. What if I don't want to? Then you don't have to. Lila picked up her pencil again, went back to her math problem. I'll think about it. She thought about it for 2 days. On the 3rd day, she told Kendra she would go, but only if it was short and only if Kendra came with her. Neutral ground, Lila said. Not her house. Somewhere else. Kendra felt something crack open in her chest at the clinical way her daughter described it. Like she was negotiating a business arrangement. Like she'd learned to protect herself. Okay, Kendra said. Where? The coffee shop downtown. The one with the good hot chocolate. So Kendra called her mother back and arranged it. Saturday afternoon. 1 hour. The coffee shop on Main Street with the big windows and the mismatched chairs. Janice agreed immediately, her voice bright with relief. The day of the visit, Kendra picked an outfit carefully. Jeans, a clean sweater. She made sure Lila wore something comfortable, nothing too nice. This wasn't a special occasion. This was a transaction. They arrived first. Got a table by the window. Ordered drinks, hot chocolate for Lila, black coffee for Kendra. Janice arrived 10 minutes later with Belinda and Belinda's youngest daughter. They walked in together, Janice moving slowly, Belinda hovering, close like she might need to catch her. Janice looked older, thinner. Her hands shook slightly when she hugged Lila, and the hug lasted too long. When she pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. "Look at you," she said. "You've gotten so tall." Lila nodded, but didn't smile. She sat back down in her chair, hands folded in her lap. Belinda sat across from Kendra, her daughter on her lap. "Thanks for doing this," she said. Not quite apologetic, not quite genuine. "It's what Lila wanted," Kendra said. They ordered drinks, talked about surface things, school, the weather, Janice's recovery. Nobody mentioned Christmas. Nobody mentioned the 2 years of silence. Lila was polite but quiet. She answered questions with short responses. Yes, no, sometimes. She didn't volunteer anything, didn't ask questions of her own. Janice kept looking at her like she was trying to memorize her face. "I've missed you so much," she said more than once. "We should do this more often." Lila nodded but didn't commit. Belinda tried to engage too, talking about her kids, about family events they'd had, about plans for the spring. She laughed too loud at things that weren't funny, tried too hard to seem casual. After 40 minutes, Lila looked at Kendra and said, "Can we go?" Kendra checked her watch. They'd agreed on an hour. "If you want to." "I'm tired." They gathered their things. Janice hugged Lila again, held her tight. "I love you," she whispered. "I've always loved you." Lila hugged her back stiffly. "Okay." In the car on the way home, Lila stared out the window. Kendra didn't turn on the radio. They drove in silence for 3 blocks. Then Lila said, "Do I have to see them again?" Kendra's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No. Promise." "I promise. Not unless you want to." Lila nodded and went back to looking out the window. That night, Kendra called Janice and told her they wouldn't be doing regular visits. One time was enough. If Lila changed her mind later, that would be her decision to make. Janice cried on the phone, accused Kendra of being cruel, of keeping her granddaughter away out of spite. Kendra listened until her mother ran out of words. Then she said, "This isn't about spite. This is about protecting my daughter from people who hurt her. We didn't hurt her. We made one mistake. One time. You closed the door on her. On Christmas. That was 2 years ago. She was a child. She doesn't even remember." "She remembers." "How do you know?" "Because she asked if she had to bring gifts before she'd agree to see you. Because she wanted the meeting in public. Because the first thing she did after we left was ask if she had to go back. She remembers everything, Mom. She just learned not to show it." Silence on the other end. "You're making a mistake," Janice said finally. "You're teaching her to hold grudges, to cut people out of her life over small things. I'm teaching her that she matters, that she doesn't have to accept being treated poorly just because people share her blood. We're family. That's not enough anymore." Kendra hung up before her mother could respond. The confrontation came 2 weeks later. Kendra was at Riverside Care, finishing up her shift, when Belinda showed up. She walked right into the facility, past the front desk, and found Kendra in the second-floor break room. "We need to talk," Belinda said. Kendra looked up from her phone. "You can't just walk in here." "I signed in. I told them I was your sister. They let me through." Kendra stood up. They were the same height, but Belinda was thicker through the shoulders, more solid. Right now, she looked like she was ready for a fight. "What do you want?" "I want you to stop this. Stop poisoning Lila against us. Stop pretending like we're monsters because we had one bad moment 2 years ago. I'm not poisoning anyone against anyone." "Yes, you are. You've convinced her we don't love her. You've made her afraid of us." She's not afraid. She's careful. There's a difference. Careful of what? Of her own family. Of being hurt again. Belinda's face flushed. Nobody hurt her. You keep saying that, but it's not true. We made a mistake. We handled something poorly. People do that. You're acting like it's some unforgivable sin. It's unforgivable to her. She's 11 years old. She doesn't get to decide who's forgivable. Yes, Kendra said. She does. You're ruining this family. You're destroying relationships that could have been repaired if you'd just let it go. I did let it go. I let go of expecting anything from any of you. That's not letting it go. That's punishing us. That's cutting us out because we don't live up to your impossible standards. Kendra felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. She looked at her sister, at the anger and frustration and complete lack of understanding on her face. Do you even remember what you said to her? What? When she came to the door, do you remember what you said? Belinda's expression shifted. I told her it wasn't a good time. You told her she wasn't supposed to come. You told her to leave. You looked at a 9-year-old child holding homemade gifts, and you made her feel unwanted. I didn't make her feel anything. You're projecting. She walked home alone, in the dark, 6 blocks, and when I found her the next morning, she'd thrown away everything she'd made because she thought nobody wanted it. That's not. Belinda stopped, swallowed. That wasn't my fault. I didn't know she'd react that way. You didn't care enough to find out. I was trying to manage a complicated situation. What was complicated about a kid dropping off Christmas presents? The timing was wrong. We had people there, people who would have asked questions. About what? About her, about why she was alone, about where you were. You were embarrassed. Kendra's voice was flat. You didn't want to explain why your niece was standing on the porch by herself because it made you look bad. That's not fair. Neither is what you did to her. Belinda's hands were shaking. You're never going to forgive this, are you? No matter what we do, no matter how much time passes, you're going to hold this over us forever. I'm not holding it over you. I'm just keeping my distance. Same thing. No, it's not. I'm not trying to punish you. I'm not trying to make you suffer. I'm just choosing to put my daughter first. And if that means we don't have a relationship with you or Mom, then that's what it means. You're choosing wrong. By protecting my kid, by teaching her that family isn't worth fighting for, by showing her that one mistake means you get cut out forever. What kind of lesson is that? Kendra picked up her bag. The lesson is that she matters, that her feelings matter, that she doesn't have to accept being hurt just because the person who hurt her says sorry, or doesn't even say sorry at all. We love her. Then you should have treated her like it. She walked past Belinda toward the door. Mom was right, Belinda said. You've always been impossible. Kendra paused in the doorway, looked back. Maybe, but at least I'm impossible in a way that protects my daughter. She left before Belinda could respond. The final conversation happened in March, almost exactly 2.5 years after that Christmas night. Kendra was at home when Janice called. It was late afternoon, and Lila was at a friend's house for a birthday party. Kendra almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hey, Mom. I need to understand. Janice's voice was tight, controlled. I need to understand what I did that was so terrible you can't forgive it. Kendra sat down on the couch. Outside, the late winter sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the living room floor. It's not about forgiveness. Then what is it about? It's about consequences. It's about making choices and living with them. I didn't choose anything. I told her it wasn't a good time. That's all I did. You closed the door on her. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I just closed the door. You locked it. Silence on the other end. You locked it, Kendra said again. She heard the lock click. She stood there and heard you lock her out. I didn't, Janice stopped. I always lock the door. It's automatic. Not to her. To her. It was you making sure she understood. She wasn't welcome. That's not what I meant. I know, but that's what you did. Another long silence. Then Janice said, voice shaking, This is destroying our family. You're destroying our family over this. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just choosing my daughter. I'm your mother. And she's mine. And when I had to choose between making you comfortable and protecting her, I chose her. Every time. And I'll keep choosing her. Even if it means losing me. Kendra felt something break inside her chest. Not cleanly. Not with relief. Just a quiet, painful fracture. Yes, she said. Even then. Janice made a sound that might have been a sob. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it. It's not broken in a way that can be repaired. Everything can be repaired if people try hard enough. No, Kendra said gently. Sometimes things break in ways that leave scars. And you have to decide if you want to live with those scars or if you want to pretend they're not there. What does that mean? It means I'm choosing to live with them. I'm not going to pretend Christmas didn't happen. I'm not going to pretend Lila wasn't hurt. I'm not going to sacrifice her comfort for your peace of mind. I love her. I know, but love isn't enough if it comes with conditions. I never. You did. Maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe you thought you were being reasonable. But you made her feel like she had to earn her place in this family. And I'm not going to let her keep feeling that way. So this is it? You're just done? After everything? I'm not done. I'm just choosing differently. Janice was crying now, openly. You're going to regret this. When I'm gone, you're going to wish you'd tried harder. You're going to wish you'd been the bigger person. Kendra closed her eyes. Maybe. But my daughter won't have to wish she'd had a mother who protected her. She'll know for sure that she did. That's not fair. No, it's not. None of this is fair. But it's what happened, and we all have to live with it. She hung up before her mother could say anything else. She sat on the couch for a long time after that, watching the sun set, thinking about family and loyalty, and the impossible choices mothers have to make. When Lila came home an hour later, Kendra made her favorite dinner, spaghetti with garlic bread, and they ate together at the small kitchen table, talking about the birthday party and the cake and the games they'd played. Lila didn't ask about her grandmother, didn't mention the family they'd left behind, and Kendra didn't bring it up. Years passed, not quickly, not easily, but they passed. Lila grew up, became a teenager, then a young adult. She went to community college, got a degree in graphic design, found work doing freelance projects from home. She was okay, not perfect. She had bad days, anxious days, days when old wounds opened up and she had to work through them. But she was steady. She was strong. She trusted her mother. She never went back to her grandmother's house, never reached out to Belinda, never tried to repair those relationships. When people asked about her extended family, she said, "It's complicated," and changed the subject. Kendra watched her daughter build a life that was hers, free from the weight of expectations and conditional love. She watched her make friends who valued her, start relationships with people who treated her well, create boundaries that protected her peace. And she never regretted it. Not when Janice died 5 years later and Belinda sent a cold, formal text about the funeral arrangements. Kendra went. Lila didn't. And Kendra didn't push. Not when people in town talked about how she'd abandoned her mother in her final years. Let them talk. She knew the truth. Not when she saw Belinda at the grocery store years later, and they passed each other without speaking. Two strangers who happened to share blood. The truth was simple, even if nobody else understood it. She'd chosen her daughter, every single time, even when it meant being the villain in someone else's story, even when it meant losing people she'd once loved. even when it meant carrying the weight of being called unforgiving, dramatic, impossible. Because in the end, there was only one story that mattered. The one where Lila knew, without question, without doubt, that when things got hard, her mother chose her. That when the world asked her to be smaller, quieter, more accommodating, her mother said no. That when people who were supposed to love her unconditionally showed that love had limits, her mother's didn't. That was the story Kendra lived by. That was the story she'd told with every choice, every sacrifice, every boundary she'd held. And years later, sitting at her kitchen table with Lila, now grown, now strong, now whole, Kendra looked at her daughter and saw not the 9-year-old standing on a dark porch holding unwanted gifts, but a woman who knew her worth, who knew she deserved better than locked doors and conditional love, who knew that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from people who won't choose you. Lila caught her looking and smiled. "What?" "Nothing," Kendra said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About Christmas nights and closed doors. About sacrifices and choices. About the quiet, relentless work of being a mother who refuses to compromise on her child's worth. About how proud I am of you," Kendra said. Lila's smile widened. "Thanks, Mom." They went back to their coffee, their comfortable silence, their life built on a foundation of unwavering protection and unconditional love. And in that moment, Kendra knew she'd made the right choice. Every single time,